I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, full speed ahead. San Diego pushing plans for a new stadium, the game plan presented to the NFL leaders today, and when an environmental impact review may be ready for the public.
Health insurance rates in California will go up next year. I'm Peggy Pico with who it affects most and why some San Diegans will pay less than others throughout the state. Then, a practical guide to fighting racism, even if you're not personally affected by profiling or discrimination.
When you gotta go, the Portland import that should have provided relief, the critics who claim it's attracting trouble. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Making their case to keep the Chargers in town, San Diego officials sat down today with representatives from the NFL to talk about local efforts to build a new sports stadium. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson joins us with more on what happened at the meeting. Eric, we know the Chargers have been asking for a new home for almost 15 years. What happened today?
Well, Dwayne, as city officials remarked today, the region's effort to build a new NFL-quality sports stadium in San Diego remains on track, although there are some obstacles to overcome. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer says the full San Diego team met with the NFL for 3 hours today. The city talked about its effort to get environmental approval for the stadium project, the local economy, the market, the ability to negotiate a financial package, and whether they can meet the tight project deadlines. Faulconer says San Diego is moving forward, but they can't do it without the Chargers at the negotiating table.
In order to achieve that success, we have to be negotiating with the team on the other side of the table. We were very clear about that today. The NFL heard us. And so, as we said before, we have a short time frame. We can still achieve that, but that is a necessary ingredient for success.
Assembly Speaker Toni Atkins spent about an hour in that meeting today. Faulconer says she offered her support for the San Diego Stadium push.
And where do we go from here, Eric?
All eyes now looking at Chicago. The NFL owners are gathering in the Windy City August 10th and 11th. San Diego will send a delegation to that meeting and make a pitch that the region deserves to keep an NFL team here. NFL owners are putting together the background so they can decide what to do about the Los Angeles situation. 3 teams vying to move to the nation's second largest market. The Chargers and Raiders looking to build a stadium in Carson. The St. Louis Rams owner is considering a stadium in Inglewood. Owners are widely expected to make a decision on which team could move to LA in October. And that is what is pushing San Diego's speedy stadium planning effort.
Yes, indeed. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson. Some tax relief for San Diego homeowners cleaning up from a record July storm. The county is offering homeowners a chance to reduce property taxes on structures damaged by heavy rain a few weeks ago. It will remain in effect until the property is rebuilt or repaired. The tax relief covers damaged homes, commercial properties, as well as mobile homes. At least 130 properties had storm damage. Fighting the bite. San Diego County workers found 64 birds have tested positive for West Nile virus this year. Lonnie Rivera shows us one program fishing for a solution to contain the mosquito population.
Good job. For many of us, awesome. This doesn't exactly look like a good time. This work team totes a huge net under the hot summer sun.
Today was a good fishing day.
This is a catch of a different kind.
Gambusia affinis? Yeah, the mosquito fish is kind of their common name.
All of these little guys swimming around feed on these, a familiar nuisance.
Protect the public from any mosquitoes that may be breeding in the rice fields.
These 23 ponds and 8 tanks are home to the largest mosquito fish population in the country.
We put them in our buckets, bring them up to our truck, and count them in as we go. We do it as quickly as we can to alleviate as much stress on the fish.
The Sacramento Yolo Vector Control District produces 4,600 pounds of mosquito fish a year. And friendly finds are often part of the catch since this habitat draws other water creatures.
They're already kind of looking for food.
They carry the fish to trouble spots with stagnant water to eat mosquito larvae. On this delivery, the team drops fish in a Sacramento rice field.
Almost 70 pounds of fish in that truck and a little over 100 pounds of fish in this truck.
This is the type of environment where mosquito larvae thrive, but just one mosquito fish can eat between 200 to 300 larvae per day. Science has proven that these voracious feeders are helpful in keeping backyards from becoming breeding grounds for disease-carrying mosquitoes. In Sacramento, Lonnie Rivera reporting.
Human error may be a factor in a deadly crash from a test flight of a commercial spacecraft. Federal investigators say the co-pilot unlocked a braking system too early on last year's Virgin Galactic flight. This caused the spacecraft or spaceship to break apart over the Mojave Desert. Investigators say there were no safeguards built into the system. The accident killed the co-pilot and seriously injured the pilot. On the brink of extinction, a rare rhino died at a zoo in the Czech Republic this week, leaving just 4 northern white rhino on Earth. You can find one of them at the San Diego Zoo. Zoo workers say the population was reduced by poachers who mistakenly believe the keratin in their horns has medicinal value. Tomorrow on Midday Edition, a closer look at this endangered species, how the San Diego Frozen Zoo works to preserve their genetic information. That's at noon on KPBS Radio. Let's face it, high school students can get into trouble. They fight, they break things. KPBS reporter Matt Bowler says tonight, Crawford High School students are asking San Diego educators to expand one of its discipline programs.
The program Restorative Justice helps students figure out why they misbehave. The idea is to treat the offending act like a symptom. Crawford High School Academy of Law student Alan Obregon says restorative justice can help build bridges between teens at odds with each other.
We have students that have been suspended for mainly for fights, and we have the 2 people that had some sort of dispute come together with 2 peer mediators.
Obregon and his Academy of Law classmates are asking the San Diego Unified School District Board to give the program at Crawford more structure.
That we'd like to have like a stable area where all of these things are done, because with peer mediation we have to go looking for places that are available to hold the mediation in general.
Last year, San Diego Unified began supporting restorative justice, and as of May, expulsions were down 60% district-wide. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
Paying more for health insurance. We told you last night, Covered California is raising the cost to buy insurance. Peggy Pico explains why the increase will be less for San Diegans.
The average rate increase for covered California plans in San Diego will be 2.8%, which is less than the rest of the state's rate hike next year. But some people who have group medical coverage through their employers could also see a significant increase. Here to explain the rate changes are my guests, Gary Rado with the Council of Community Clinics and Jan Spenceley, Executive Director of San Diegans for Healthcare Coverage. And Jan, why are San Diego's rate increases going to be less than the rest of the states?
I think there are 3 reasons. One, we're a much more competitive environment. We have more doctors, more hospitals, health systems, community health centers. So we've been in managed care a long time. I'd say another reason, in general, for everyone, is that there's less risk this time. They have experience. When we first started Cover California, everybody was worried about the risk. This time they have experience. And I think the third reason is really that the plans with 40% of enrollment in San Diego already, they're the ones that came in low. So San Diego's average went way down.
I see. Well, who's going to be most affected by these rate increases?
I would say the people who were not in one of the plans that came in real low will see a bigger increase in their share of premium.
So the people that are in the higher premium plans already
Yes.
are the ones, and the people that are in assisted or getting assistance, they may not see as big of a hike.
The ones that are, they're all getting, a lot of them are getting
2.8.
assistance, but the ones that are in the plans, those 2 lowest plans, they're gonna be benefiting. Those other plans, the people in the other plans are going to see an increase.
An increase. I see. Now, Gary, get this Covered California, staying on that. This is the 3rd open enrollment period. What did you learn from the previous 2 that could help you increase enrollment this time around?
Well, one of the things that we know in this time is that this is probably the most difficult group to reach, those that are continuing to be uninsured at this point. We've learned that we're going to need to contact them many times people don't have very much experience at this point in this group as far as what insurance is, how do you purchase it, what does that mean. So we've learned that we're going to need to do outreach to them, we're going to need to do it frequently, we're going to need to bring them in and work with them one-on-one, and we need to make sure that we can do it in a language that they feel most comfortable with.
Yeah, and same question for you. What do you think we've learned?
Well, I would add to what Gary just said is that, you know, about 2/3 of those that have not enrolled assume that Covered California or even Medi-Cal is too expensive for them, and they haven't even tried. They haven't even come and asked the question. And so what we try to tell people is at least ask before you turn it down. And maybe we can help you find something affordable.
And speaking of affordability, Gary, what do you do if you're having trouble paying your current covered health care plan premium? Is there something you can do for that, especially in anticipation of next year's increases?
Well, there are two things. One is if you're already a patient at one of our community health centers, you can come in and you can talk with the folks there and say, here's my problem, unable to pay my copay. Can't do much about the premium, but there's also the copay and deductibles. And very frequently we have a sliding fee scale that can then look at what person's income is and say what's appropriate and what approximately we're able to do to kind of discount that within the law. And the other thing to do is to shop around. Some of the plans are actually going down in price and premiums.
Yes.
So shop around online, come into the community clinic, things like that. Jen, I want to get to this employee-sponsored health coverage. They're expected to see an increase as well that may be passed on to employees. We're talking about small businesses here. What's driving those hikes, and who do you think will be impacted most by those?
Well, they're claiming what's driving those hikes is that they're having to standardize the benefits this year, like Covered California. And my question is, why? Why do you have to go up so high when, in fact, we've demonstrated through Covered California that it can be done more affordably? So what my advice to small employers, I've said this before, is blasphemy. If you get high rates and your employees really can't afford that coverage, don't offer it. It's an option for small employers under 50 employees. They don't have to offer it.
And then the employees would get their coverage through Covered
subsidized
California,
coverage through Covered California.
I see. So, Gary, when does open enrollment this year start? And also, what's the calendar for people who want to renew?
Well, renewal will be October 1st. Open enrollment will be November 1st, and folks should be sure to ask and make sure, especially if they're new, that if they want to continue to go to a particular community health center or a particular physician, make sure they're part of the network of that particular health plan. And they can help you right there in the clinic.
And they can start looking now.
And they can call 211, they can call our offices. There are a lot of places, there are brokers out there. There's help, free help, and I want to say that over and over. Nobody should be charging you to help you. So there's free help available.
And they can start right now. They can start right now. We have to end it here. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So start right now. Get some free help. Jan Spenceley and Gary Rado, thank you so much.
Thank you.
When nature calls in downtown San Diego, the Portland Loos were supposed to help. KPBS reporter Claire Trageser explains how they have generated more controversy.
It's a steamy afternoon in downtown San Diego, and the Padres are playing at Petco Park. A nearby parking lot is filled with tailgaters and lines of kids on summer camp field trips.
The Giants are playing.
Darlene Collins is visiting from the Bay Area. She looks skeptically at a large steel stall on the sidewalk.
I did not know that was the bathroom. I thought that was some kind of electrical equipment or something.
Collins was mystified by a Portland Loo, one of 2 new public restrooms in downtown San Diego. Originally designed by the city of Portland, Oregon, the restrooms are meant to be easy to install and clean. They're connected to a sewer line and have running water. Still, Collins wasn't keen on trying one out.
No way, I wouldn't go in there.
If she did have to go,
I would hold it and go in the ballpark.
But for others, that's not an option.
A lot of us don't have a restroom to go to, so we can use that one and it helps.
Ronald Bennett has been homeless for 22 years and often sleeps near Petco Park. Before the loo was installed,
I had to go all the way downtown. I'll go to a mission and things like that.
If you or I were to go into a place that was quote unquote public, we would likely be able to gain access run to the back of a restaurant, walk through the lobby of a hotel.
Heather Pollock leads the homeless advocacy nonprofit Girls Think Tank. She says a restroom isn't truly public unless everyone can use it.
I walked in and I was holding all of my belongings, or I hadn't showered in a few days, there's a very high likelihood that I would not be allowed to utilize that.
Pollock says the Portland Loos provide the homeless with a human right.
Affording individuals the ability to use a private and safe space to utilize a restroom is basic dignity.
But not everyone is a Loo fan. The steel enclosed toilets are criticized for their cost of more than $500,000. That's double their original price tag. Extra sewer lines raise the cost. When they opened last winter, they quickly generated other gripes as well.
There is increased criminal activity in there. I know that the business owners and residents in this area fear, for possible rapes or assaults. And, I think it's a very valid concern.
John Wance runs the restaurant Stella Public House a few blocks away from the L Street Loo. He says the restroom has attracted more homeless people and crime to the area.
The criminal element in the area feeds on the area because the transient population is here. And, it's a very, very vicious cycle that happens in this area. And until the city really, really, really actively puts their feet down into this area and does something about that, I don't know if 14th and L is ever a good location.
City staff now want to remove the Loo and put it in storage until another spot can be found for it. They point out police calls to 14th and L between April and June more than doubled from the same time period last year. To replace the L Street Loo, the nearby Father Joe's Village's homeless shelter is willing to open its restrooms all day and night if the city pays $80,000 a year for cleaning. If you add up the costs, it actually ends up being cheaper to keep the Loo open. I've personally checked out the Loo multiple times. It was usually a little smelly and dirty, but nothing worse than a gas station restroom. I also watched the Loo for a few hours after dark one night last week and saw a steady stream of people using it. Most didn't look homeless, and I didn't see any obvious criminal activity. Girls Think Tank's Pollock says if you take away the toilets, where else are people supposed to go?
If we don't have adequate access to public restrooms, there is no alternative for individuals than to resort to the streets to perform a human daily function.
And it's not just homeless people who use the Loos. At the start of the Padres game, a line formed of kids who all needed to go. Downtown resident Torian James says he uses the L Street Loo daily.
We needed these things desperately. It has water. Sometimes it has toilet paper. They're a godsend.
Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Looking for the next generation of leaders, a new Harvard study shows teenage girls have an unexpected bias against women leaders. Out of 20,000 students surveyed, nearly a quarter of girls say they preferred male political leaders over their female counterparts. The bias also plays out for traditional gender roles. Nearly half of the girls surveyed said they favored women as child care directors over men. Researchers recommend parents and educators help kids spot stereotypes, proactively confront discrimination, and avoid the tendency to just let boys be boys. A practical guide to fight racism from San Diego's City Beat. It looks at the challenges and conversations that need to happen to put an end to it. Peggy Pico tells us the article has already gotten lots of attention.
How can white Americans help combat racism in an everyday way? The answer may be found in a step-by-step guide in a recent San Diego City Beat article titled How to Be an Interrupter, a White Person's Guide to Activism, written by my guest, Aaron Belfer. Also joining us is Andre J. Branch, San Diego's NAAC president. And Aaron, you start your article with a quote from Anne Brandon, a woman who fought for racial equality. In it, it says in part, the fight against racism is our issue, dealing with white people. How so?
Well, white people built our system of white supremacy in this country, and so it is our responsibility and an imperative to dismantle it. And part of that begins with how we are taking action in our lives every day. And I've heard from a lot of friends and acquaintances, both on social media and in real life, about what to do with the grief and anger that they are feeling from the repeated injustices and violations against Black people.
And you refer to this as being the interrupter. What does that mean?
Well, it was from a keynote speech that I was present for by Dr. Jae-Ron Kim, who's an activist, and she was talking about changing that language, and it just has more of a connotation of really getting in and making a change and affecting change.
Okay, and Andre, you're the NAACP president here in San Diego. What are you hearing from white people in our community about racism?
The white people from whom I hear, of course, are outraged about the racism and recent episodes of it that we hear. But not a lot of people are talking because not a lot of white people want to talk about racism. They don't want to agree that we have a problem with race in what is supposed to be this post-racial society, which is really not true. I think people are still uncomfortable talking about race because so many of us have been hurt around race. And when I say us, I mean us as human beings. We've had experiences that hurt us, and we don't want to talk about race. We don't want to agree that we have a problem with race because it brings back those memories of bad experiences we've had, perhaps with someone of a different race, but around issues of race. We don't want to go back to that uncomfortable, painful place.
And we're going to come back to how to actually do that. And I want to start, Aaron, with, in your article, you list 11 specific acts that a person can do to be, as you say, an upstander instead of a bystander in these race issues. Could you highlight some of the things that somebody practically can do tomorrow that you included in your article?
Well, I mean, the very first one was to put a Black Lives Matter sign in your yard or in a window and really claim that you are standing alongside Black Americans and their struggle for equality and equity and justice. The discussions amongst friends and neighbors is really important, and talking about these issues and talking with your children, raising children so that future generations can carry that forward, instilling in them the ability to recognize that we are different, we have differences, and then what does that mean, and what is the historical context for that?
Sure, and you had some practical things too. Get involved in different groups and showing up for racial justice at the NAACP. So, but I want to start with you, Andre. Sometimes white people, I think, are cautious about talking about racism, like you say, because it acknowledges that it exists, or joining a Black-led, in this case, group to support it because they may be afraid of saying something inappropriate. They may be afraid of being out of place. What would you say to encourage white people to engage?
White people are not out of place at an NAACP meeting. A lot of people don't know that white people form the majority of the small group of individuals who in 1909 began the NAACP. The NAACP had white leadership for a number of years after its inception. White people are not alone or not out of place at the NAACP because the NAACP is about advocating for civil rights for all people. Let me say that again, advocating for civil rights for all people. That includes white people.
Okay, and on this we'll have to end, Aaron. So your suggestions, engaging people, you have these tips. What would you say is maybe the first thing to reach out to, or how to engage and encourage white people to get involved in this?
I mean, I think it just starts with the simplest steps that I talked about and really connecting with other people on the issues. I think white people need to start educating themselves and really taking a hard look at our responsibility in the struggle.
All right, we are out of time, but I want to let folks know that they can read the How to Be an Interrupter, A White Person's Guide to Activism, published by you in City Beat's July 20th issue at our website, kpbs.org. Aaron Belfer and Andre Branch, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much for having us.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour. A look at those who lived downwind from the first test of a nuclear bomb 70 years ago. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
Dr. Seuss is back with a goofy new book. What Pet Should I Get? It's well worth a look. There's a cat on the cover with a bow, but no hat yet. and a fish, wouldn't you know, who can live when not wet. The crowds gathered at the Geisel Library to see the drawings and sketches of what would come to be the 8th posthumous release for Theodore Seuss G, in a place named in his honor for all the world to see.
I can tell already that there are illustrations in this book that will be permanently emblazoned in the memories of young readers. I have my own memories of certain Seuss illustrations, and there are some great ones in here. A lot of Seuss's illustrations are rather surreal, and this is definitely a good example.
The story is based on materials found 2 years ago by Audrey Geisel, the widow of the late Dr. Seuss, who died nearly 24 years ago in La Jolla. The new book celebration included lemonade and animal crackers. Well, you might want to keep that umbrella handy. We may see some rain and thunderstorms by the beaches tomorrow, with 70s and 80s over the next few days. Increased humidity as well returning for the weekend, mostly dry inland with temps in the 80s. More rain in the forecast possible for the mountains with 80s there. Another chance for showers in the desert, triple-digit temperatures. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on Morning Edition. What happens to kids who have a parent serving time in prison? A new UC Davis study looks at the long-term effects. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.